Come down, Spirit of Sobukwe. 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 Umanyano de Africa. 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 United States of Africa. United States of Africa. The persistent single narrative that is consistently told and reproduced is that of supermen who are cast as the sole agents and the actors of history. And so we wanted to center this Women's Month and ground it on the experiences of many African women who continue to be erased from our national consciousness and public discourse in South Africa. For today's lecture, we are blessed to have in our midst people who have, in one way, forget what you suffered on my behalf. That is why I want you to have this written testimony from me, so that we both of us can go back to it in the future. I just wish to say, child, that you have been a magnificent wife and mother. You have been everything I could have ever wished my wife to be. And I mean that, little woman. And the children too will agree with me. This is the one time that I am indeed aggrieved that I am not around to express my thanks to and appreciation of you as wife and mother. I have said it before and I repeat it boldly and gratefully that you are chosen among the chosen. We have come a long way together. We have watched each other grow and mature. We have watched the children God has blessed us.
Always happened in Kimberley, no social development. The separation of communities on a racial basis was very sharp. There were no opportunities for African people in Kimberley. It was always a town which only created opportunities for white people, and at best some opportunities for what used to be called colored people. So that when you are in Kimberley and you were born there, went to school there, and you had ambitions of going beyond matric and engage in tertiary educational activities, you had to leave Kimberley and do it somewhere else. Most of us left Kimberley after matric, went to university somewhere else, and never go back to Kimberley because there were no opportunities for people with university qualifications. That's our life story. It is for that reason that after university, I also never went back. But Utata Sobukwe came at the time when I was finishing matric, I went to Tufloop University. And I went to university in a period where the revolution against apartheid sharpened. The APRA Onkgopotsetiro strikes, which manifested themselves throughout the country, happened in 1972. I was at university at the time. I was at Tufloop. Thank you. And not long thereafter, in 1974, the Frelimo national strikes also manifest in support of the Frelimo uprisings in Mozambique at the time. 2 years thereafter, 1976 happened. And Buntate Sobukwe were in the midst of all of that. No wonder they were blamed for that level of revolution in society generally at national level. Universities were regarded as hotbeds for political activity in the first place. Political revolution was led by students in the open. And most of us were then outside of Kimberley. But then the strategy that the regime used with universities at the time was, when these national solidarity strikes or uprisings or revolutionary action manifested themselves throughout the country, they would close the universities and we would all be sent home. But the last songs, revolutionary songs that we would sing before we went home, whether you were detained or whether you were outside of detention, was any song which embraced the lyrics, "Aluta continua," which meant, when we come back, the struggle shall continue. The idea was to close the universities, readmit, formally readmit, you had to re-register, readmit students and fizzle out the so-called ringleaders. The ringleaders would not be admitted and only the others would come back. But because we have undertaken that aluta continua, whether you are admitted or not, you would come back to campus and you would not distinguish who is student and who is not student. Okay. So Ntate Sobukwe came back into, after 6 years of detention, came back into that kind of social setting. Now, I had gone back home and I didn't go back to university at some stage. And I stayed at home, and that is why you see on my CV that I was a salesperson at some stage. Then I decided to find a part-time job because I didn't have the money to go back. And I didn't have train fare to go back, actually that's what it was. So I had to find a job. And I got a job at then it was an Edgar's outfit called Sales House. So I'm just telling the story because Tando committed me. I have to fulfill his promise that I will tell the story. Because this is not about Ntate Sobukwe. This occasion is about Mama Zonde. But let me not go too long. Let me just fulfill the promise and finish the story. So Kanti, when I left Turfloor, we used to have these metal trunks, what we called trunk. It's like a suitcase, a metal suitcase. But it was sturdy, it was strong. We didn't have these Gucci things. The students would want to carry. We had a metal trunk where you put in everything. Yeah. And you would just have a little bag that you go into the train and not the flight. Okay. And you stayed 2 days in the train, riding in the train from Petersburg to Kimberley. So I had put everything, when I left campus, I had put everything in my suitcase. Including, because we belonged to SASO, we were ringleaders at SASO. I put everything, including SASO material, reading material, into that trunk. I couldn't carry it on myself because they were banned material. So I put everything in there. When my trunk reached Kimberley Station, it was intercepted, it was opened, and of course. And very early in the morning, the doors were kicked open, the security police came, they detained me, and was taken to, not the police station, used to have headquarters, security headquarters, interrogated about this material. And I thought, my material? I don't know anything. No, you must have had the wrong trunk. They said, come. They took me to a room. They said, whose trunk is this? Actually, this is my trunk. And then they said, open it. He said, or should we open it? I said, yeah, you can open it. Where's the key? I don't have the key. No, when they asked me to open it, I said, I don't have the key. I didn't know that you would ask me to open my trunk. You had my trunk. I said, okay, should we open it? I said, you may open it. I said, okay, witness, everybody, she says we can open it. So they broke it open. Actually broke it open with some gadget. And just on top, we had the SASO material. You know the SASO emblem was the clenched fist. We had the SASO material books there. Whose books are these? And I said, those? I have no idea. He said, whose trunk is it? It's my trunk. But whose books is it? I don't know. They said, who packed this trunk? I said, wow, I can't remember that. You know, when we left campus, it was confusing. We were helping each other to pack things. And I don't know, maybe somebody put those things there. He says, you think you're clever, eh? And they locked me up. Closed the trunk, they locked me up. It was on a Friday, early in the morning. So over the weekend, I spent the time in jail. And then on Monday, I appeared in court, and the family asked Dr. Sobukwe to represent me. And then he, so to say, dealt with it. Okay. And then the next occasion, I was now at home. The next occasion again, I was arrested for actually shouting at the police for arresting somebody who had done nothing. During that time, in the townships, you would have, on a Friday evening, police vans which we called, you remember the 6 Mabone mill? Yeah. They would drive around in police vans which had a lot of lights in front. 6 lights, 3 on the side, 3 on the side, and we used to call them 6 Mabone. And then the police would hang on the police van at the back, and they would pick up people, they would just arrest people. Now in Kimberley, because of the alcohol problem, you would be arrested for loitering or for drinking in public. So they would just pick up people, throw them into the van. So I was walking with this friend of mine, and I witnessed the police just, a young man was just standing somewhere on the corner, on the corner of the street, and just watching the world go by. The police just came, stop. picked him up, threw him into the van. I said, for goodness sake, you can't do that. He hasn't done anything. He said, I don't know what happened. Because the next moment, I was inside the van. When I asked my friend what actually happened, she says, as you were shouting, they came, lifted you up and threw you into the van. They drove around with us the whole night, picking up drunken people. And I was there, the only woman in a van full of men. And I and this young man were the first ones to get into the van. The rest of the people came after us. So you can imagine we were squashed against the van, and they had the kind of cage where they had dogs, police dogs. So the police dogs were between us and the driver's area. So as the police van drove very roughly, we would fall against this cage and hold against it, and the dogs would try to bite us. It was terrible. So at around, that happened when they picked us up, it was about 6 o'clock in summer. At about 10 o'clock we got to the police station, and they took me one side. In the same room, I had to stand somewhere in the corner, and they started beating up these guys. They beat up everybody and kicked them. At the time, the police used to wear very heavy boots, very heavy, thick-soled boots. They told me to stand in the corner there, and I had to watch how they were beating up these guys, how they trampled on their lower backs, and they would scream, "Dipio," and then they would go. So again, and Dr. Sobukwe had to come to my rescue. And I told him that, so I wonder what happened to that young man who was arrested for absolutely doing nothing, you know. Here I am, I feel so guilty, here I am. I have obtained legal representation, and in the context of South Africa at the time, I shouted at the police, and you can't do that. During that time, no, you can't do that. And he did nothing, he was just standing there. And then Prof just sobered me up. He said, Yvonne, one thing at a time. Sometimes you can only do so much. Don't worry, wherever that young man is, it will get sorted. In other words, Prof and Untaten Zimande were the only two African lawyers in Kimberley at the time. They really couldn't defend everybody. It was just too much. And besides this one, Prof. Sobukwe would never take money from anybody that he represents. Yes. I don't know that. Millie, did your father ever get fees from White House? He never. He would refuse to take money from anybody. And when I asked him, I wish we had more lawyers in the city. I don't know how many men study law. How many people do we have at Fort Hare? I asked him at the time, do you have an idea how many young men from Kimberley are studying law at Fort Hare at the time, because Fort Hare was the university. And then he said, what is it? Come again. And I repeated this notion about why we don't have more men studying law. What about you? And I said, law, me? I mean, law is such a male-dominated profession. He said, yes, of course it's male-dominated. But women are not precluded from studying law. Is there a law against women studying law? I said, not that I know of. I don't think you. Let's start with you. Yeah, in Kimberley, let's start with you. Then, as Tando said, I had registered for a BA degree at Turf when I was at Turf. and my idea is to become a teacher. I said, I need to go back to university. So I went back to Turfloop. When I got back there, I registered for a law degree. The rest is history. But then sometimes, there were times, not anymore now, there were times when I felt very guilty because I thought I had promised Prof that I would study law, and like him, I would fight apartheid in the system with the weakest fiber I have in my body and defend people against the system. And in my head I thought, and not charge me for the work that I do. Only Prof can do that. And sometimes I feel guilty that I hadn't become a formidable defense lawyer who defended people against apartheid. But that too is another story. Because I tried, but things at the time, I was told that a woman, you want to serve articles here? No, we can't afford what? Maternity leave. We can't afford to pay you when you need to go away for maternity leave. Okay. But that is the history that Thando wanted me to tell you about. And I'm telling that history because who Prof was and what Prof did, the historical icon that he is today, and his involvement in the struggle would always come up whenever one inquires about Veronica. And Veronica would become an incidental icon. And the main role player would be Prof. You would hear Prof's life story, you would hear his involvement in the struggles and how he led the struggles. And then, if anything, you would hear that Nelson supported him. But then again, as Thando said, I was listening to Thando and I said, we could just as well give this lecture. Because that's the concern that I have. It happens with all the struggle icons who are male, who had struggle icon partners or wives, who were with them in the struggle. You hardly hear what they did. You hear what their husbands or their partners did, and you only hear they supported them. They were there alongside him, they supported him. When there is so much to tell about what they themselves, as struggle icons in their own right, did. I once was asked by Walter Sisulu University to deliver the Albertina Sisulu Memorial Lecture. And when I did my research to give that lecture, all I could hear was about what Walter Sisulu did. And in real life, I knew what the Albertina did. During our lifetime, the role that she played with the UDF. I wondered, where is that information? Where is in-depth research about that information? Thando, I have to take off my hat.
So the lessons I've learned today are quite a few. I think they count to 7 in total. was that number one, Mama Sobukwe was on mastering. She mastered frustration, other people's frustration. You frustrated her, and she kept going. She stood. And the question is, where people are frustrating you, are you standing? Are you drawing on the strength of Mama Sobukwe? Because she was frustrated and she stood. And where I'm asking now, today, to you, and I'm sounding probably like an American pastor when I'm saying this, but where are you standing in the wave of frustration? Because certainly, if there was anyone who mastered frustration, it was Mama Sobukwe. She stood, lesson number 2, to be bold. In actual fact, she wasn't just bold, she was relentless. Writing letters after letters after letters. Can you imagine? You just close one letter and you get another one in the post. She was relentless. And she never gave up on her dream. Can you dare to give up? Can you dare to give up when she had a whole government against her, a whole apartheid regime against her? But she didn't give up, she was relentless. Number 3, she was a woman who bared the injuries of her children. And she was a woman who bared the injuries of her husband and her friends. She took it on herself. She stood in front of them. The word I can only think of was sacrifice. It takes sacrifice to be a woman like that. And that leads into point number 4, lesson number 4. It takes a particular woman to be for a particular man. So if you are looking for a wife, men sitting here, you need to look for a Mama Sobukwe who can be bold, who can be relentless, who can stand. Because life is tough. It's not easy. Okay? Not only that, number 5, she was inspirational. She wanted women to be better than herself. And Nomhlotla Mave is an example and testimony of that. She was not selfish. She didn't keep her knowledge to herself. She shared. And not only shared, but she was demanding of that. Because she gave a directive that we as women, we need to contribute to the economic development of this country. Number 6, she was not only a wife, she was not only a mother, she was not only an activist, but she was a business woman. And that says a lot, because after her husband being incarcerated, even while her husband was incarcerated, she was doing business. Even when her husband died, she was doing business. Why? Because she had children to feed. She had a legacy to leave. She had the gift of reinventing herself. You know, when frustration comes, when people are frustrating you, it is the time, it is the most beautiful time that we learn from the life of Mama Sobukwe to reinvent ourselves. We need to reinvent ourselves. We mustn't hold on. She wasn't a woman who held on. Am I right, Sisman? She wasn't a woman who hold on. When people said no, she took another route. And she went in another direction and she didn't hold on, and it benefited her. I really want to say amen. And then, because I'm so inspired, she was never locked down. You could never say to her, you could never say, from the stories that I've heard, you could never say that is what she was exactly. because she would always come up with something else. She would always reinvent herself to something else. And that's a big lesson for us to learn. Never be predictable. Never allow people to predict you. Be who you need to be. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to leave you with that. And I want to impress on you again the words of Nonhlanhla Mali, who said, stop being consumers. Take up your rightful role and participate in the economic emancipation of this country. It is not in the hands of others, it is in our hands. I want to call on women and say to women, you need more than the seething anger. You need more than the anger that you feel. You need to overcome that anger. And you need to participate. And you need to run the race. And so I thank Vaal University of Technology for being true, for putting women in the center of what we do, and for helping us to see the lived experience of Mama Veronica Zandini Sobukwe. What a life that we are honored to have. You know, others have other role models. Our role model played her role. We are because of who she was. I thank you.
Can we give her a big round of applause? One more time. That was Dr. Pauline Machiga. She is the Executive Director at CAD. And that is just about it. That is just about it. We have come to the end of our program for today. I would like to thank the Sobukwe Trust in partnership with the organizers right here at the Vaal University of Technology. I would like to thank Prof. Gordon CJ for taking part in this as well. Mr. Tando Sipuye, a big thank you to you. I would also like to thank Justice Yvonne Mokgoro. Thank you so much for sharing your story. We are very much inspired. Thank you. Mrs. Nonhlanhla Mali, thank you so much. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. Dr. Pauline Machiga, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And that's where we're going to leave it, I guess. Yeah, till next time. Till next time. I guess we'll meet at the 3rd annual tribute to Mama Zonde. So, thank you.